Hi there guys, how's it going? Welcome to another EDH Geeks video. And in this video we'll be discussing just a little bit of what the difference is between thinking a card or assessing a card as bad and actually hating a card or hating a certain strategy and whatnot. So this came up because when I put out, video about Temple of the False God being a bad card, people assume to say, well, that means you hate that card. It's not that I actually hate that card. I don't like the card, but that's irrelevant to me assessing it as either a good card or a bad card. I'm assessing the card based on what its effect is and how consistently it is good and actually does what you want it to do, in other words, or its efficiency and its ability to actually be a relevant card in your deck if you're putting it in. That's what I mean. Hating something or hating a card or hating a certain strategy is completely different. I don't particularly like control. I think counter spells are fine, but when you're facing stacks dexes and just full on control decks and that sort of thing, I don't like that. But that's just me personally. I know there are people that are out there that really like control and really like stacks, but I just won't play those games most of the time because it's not fun for me to be sitting there not able to play the game and have three other people not be able to play the game, basically. I don't really like those strategies where, you know, uh, either one player or a lot of the players are adversely affected by a certain strategy. And I don't like combo either because it just feels like the person presses that I win button on turn 2 or 3 or whatever, and then no one really got to play the game. Of course, yes, you can shuffle up and play another game, but I just don't want to play with that person or that person's deck again because I'm just like, well, you just want to combo on turn 2 or 3 and win, and here we are trying to play, till turn 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We're trying to play, an hour long game or half hour long game, and here you are either taking a 20-minute turn or, you basically just say, I win because unless somebody's got something, this is what's going to happen. I do think at a certain point you do need to um, remember people want to be doing other things in playing rather than playing the game, and just going through every single step of what's happening and whether you're going to win or whether you're going to lose is a bit silly at a certain point, or what you're trying to actually do. You shouldn't just try to lethargically go through it. You should just go, right, well, how much mana do I have? How many times can I do this? Or whatever, legitimately. So that you can actually calculate it out and say, right, I've got this much mana. That means I have 3 activations or 4 activations or whatever it is of this effect. So I'll just say I do this 4 times. I'm tapped out, so therefore I can't do anything else after that, and then I'll pass. But what happens in me doing those 4 things is X, Y, and Z, or whatever. Or if you are at almost the end of the game and you say, okay, I'm going to cast this spell, basically, no matter what you do, because of what my board state is, unless you can counteract this spell or unless you can board wipe me at instant speed or whatever, I will win. That is what's going to happen because I've got lethal damage or I've got this combo or I've got this effect or whatever else, so I can take infinite combats or whatever else, something else. I win the game because of X. So it doesn't waste people's time. People don't want to sit there and say, oh, the game's over, and you're just like messing around. Just say, like, look, this means I win. You know, you've got to find that point at which you say, oh, well, this actually does win me the game. So do you want to keep playing it through and see what happens or whatever, or do you care what's going on? Like, I'm going to win. Have you got anything to do against that? Okay, no, the game's over then. Let's go our separate ways. We'll shuffle up in a few minutes and we'll get another game later. You know, it's got to come to that point, and, you know, I understand that. But I don't agree with playing that sort of style of deck. You know, that happens usually on turn 1, 2, 3, or 4, or whatever. You know, those are the decks that I don't like, and I don't like the decks that basically are trying to do the same thing, but, you know, are basically stacks decks saying that you can't play the game any further. It just means that you locking the other players out of actually doing anything relevant before you combo off. So, you know, and that's just the strategies that I don't like. I don't like decks that give people things that basically say that they can't play the game or give out those sorts of effects, those control effects. I don't really like those decks. I want people to be, oh, this, I know this is me, and again, but I want people to be able to play the game. I want people to be able to have fun in playing the game. I don't want to just be having fun. If my deck starts become oppressing to other people's deck, then I feel bad about what my deck is doing, which is why I don't tend to play those sorts of strategies. I like playing the strategies that I like playing, which is just basically janky creatures beatdown for the most part, and that's what a lot of my decks are about. So it's pretty easy to beat what my decks are actually doing. Just pack some board wipes or whatever, and I'm probably dead after that. You know, I played a couple games where, you know, a couple people have just board wiped every single turn, and basically no one does anything, and the game's over because the other person is playing that very controlling deck where, you know, they just board wipe every other turn, but then they finally find their combo and they're just like, oh, I win. Okay. You know, turn 4, 5, 6, or 7, you know, and that's not very much fun for the other players. I mean, it's certainly not much fun for me, but I know that the other players are just sitting there going, so I just got time walked. Great. Is this game over yet? You know, like, oh man, come on. Let people, that's what I mean, let people do something. Even if it hurts you, don't worry about it. It's one of those things. The game has got to progress, and if people come to a game, then they want to be able to, you know, do something relevant in that game or feel like their deck did something. I don't like those decks that are, or, you know, people who say, oh, well, I should just board wipe because otherwise I might lose 5 life while I'm still at 40. You know, like, that's irrelevant. Like, sure, you could also be hit for 10, but that's still irrelevant in my opinion. Or even if you get hit for 15, that's still irrelevant. Unless you're actually almost legitimately dead, I would not board wipe. Or unless you're legitimately just going to win off of it, then I would not do it. The same with destroying lands. I just would not do it because unless you've got the win, I just see it as a bad play. Eventually you go, oh, well, now I have no mana as well. So unless you can give your stuff indestructible, I just don't see the point in it. Because if you've got that advantage where you can go, oh, yes, well, now or I have all my mana and all you have no mana, now what I'm going to do is proceed to play this, play this, play this, and then I'm so far ahead that I've just won. So, you know, that's legit. I don't like playing it out after that because I would think to say, well, you know, game's over. I can't do really anything. I'm not going to get back in this game after that. The other players aren't going to get back out after this. and then we're just in this really slow, grindy game that's going to take 4 hours or whatever, which is just dumb. I don't want to play that game. At a certain point, I'm just not interested anymore. And I think the other players are the same. Like, this is just going to be a 4 hour game now because you decided to destroy all lands. So the same can be said to a degree for board wiping at inopportune times. If you board wipe just after someone else board wipe, and the next player board wipes just after you, and so on and so on and so on, that just leads to another game that's 4 hours long where no one can really do anything. At least in our sort of pods that we generically play, we're playing, big, well, I say big creature decks, but we're playing a majority of creatures in our decks, and that's the main way that we win, is by dealing combat damage or by having something that actually, is relevant with creatures, i.e. sacrifice decks or whatnot. And again, I will say that I don't like things like Grave Pact and things like that, because again, if you're just making a lot of useless tokens and whatnot, if you can just sack a lot of those things to your Grave Pacts, not to your Grave Pacts, but to Phyrexian Altars and whatnot, and you just happen to have your Grave Pacts and whatnot out, then the game just stalls again, and then everyone else is watching you play solitaire until you win by having, some effect, some combo, or by having, a commander that actually grows, like Corval, because of you sacking things or because of you killing stuff and whatnot, so that then you can just be like, oh, I Voltron you out next turn, and then I Voltron him out next turn, and I Voltron you out next turn. Okay, cool, game's over then. Let's shuffle up and play another game. Because at that point, it's like, well, none of us have got to do anything relevant for the last several turns, and we're just not going to be able to do anything relevant for the next few turns, and then you're just going to win. So, I just don't like that sort of thing where no one really gets to play the game except for one player, really. Everyone in the game should be allowed to play the game the way they want to play the game, and if somebody's playing a medium control deck, then that's fine. It's not like I'm going to walk away from somebody playing a deck and they're just playing a controlling deck. Most of the things that they want to do are controlling and comboing, but I just don't like playing those sorts of decks, and I don't like playing against those sorts of decks. That's different from me thinking that a card is specifically bad, and I'm going to try to bring it back to this whole idea of assessing a card or something as not good, like Jeweled Lotus or whatever. The 5-mana Manarok is just not a good card in my opinion for the most part. Now, does it fit in some decks? Yes, it does. But again, that's assessing it based on in generic terms. In generic terms, if I have my Boros equipment deck that I've just started, just pretty much finished building, and most of my stuff is CMC 3 or less, or mostly 3 or less, it just wouldn't go in that deck, because what's the point? Like, I never need that much mana in that deck. Yes, I need mana to equip all my equipment, but I have all these things that basically say you can equip for almost 0 or 0, or you can equip to one thing for free, or you can equip when you cast this thing for free, or you can equip for free or whatnot. Things like this. Those things are very good and very powerful. So I keep those things in the deck so that you can go, well, I just equip for free. I auto-equip when I cast this to a creature. Oh, look, and it has haste because that's what the equipment does, or whatever. So I get that early turn in where I can attack and do what I'm doing and draw cards off of it, or get more lands off of that trigger, or do whatever else, or, look for cards that I actually need, and things like that. So that I get that advantage out of it. But again, just me saying cards like Dreamstone Hedron and cards like that are bad cards. For the most part, you know, that is what I would say. But, like, it's not that I hate those cards. I just think that I don't like having those cards in most decks because they just don't fit into most decks. If you're playing an Eldrazi deck or whatever, or your commander is, that much mana that it's 12 mana or 10 mana or 12 mana or something like that ridiculous, then yes, your commander, then of course, yes. Or if you're playing a big mana deck or something like that, and you actually need, that mana all the time. Gigantha is another card. I don't think it's that good, but I do find that it finds its way into certain decks, like Sisay, who likes to tutor for legendaries. The Chromatic Orrery, that's 7 mana. I don't like that card, but I know it sort of fits into that sort of deck as well, or Golos or whatnot, where you can just cheat it out and things like that, and then you can cheat out another Golos activation and whatnot. Those cards are good in those decks, but for most decks they wouldn't be good, and I just don't like them in those decks, and it just doesn't make any sense to me for people to play them because they're not efficient enough at what they're doing to actually be ramp. So what you're using them for isn't ramping for the most part. It's just some other utility, and again, I just don't see the point in playing them if you're not built around it. If you're not built around needing that mana for a specific creature's activated ability, like Golos or Sisay or whatnot, or if you're not built around a big mana deck where you're just trying to play all these things like Joda, you're trying to play all these things that are big and scary and dumb from your hand and whatnot, or from your library or whatnot. I just don't like those cards in generic decks. Again, I think people need to rethink the way that they play their decks and what they choose to put in their decks, the way they choose to ignore certain cards because they're quote unquote situational. I think some situational cards are very good. Knight of the White Orchid and whatnot are very good because, for the most part, if you've passed on your turn 2 or whatever, then the next players, or if you've gotten out to the fourth player, usually when you go to your turn 2, the other players have already ramped, or if they haven't, they're going to. So again, like that situational card, despite it not always being good, it can still be fairly good most of the time. So I understand that some people would say, well, what's the difference between that and a situational card like Temple of the False God? The difference is, as I said, that, or whatever, or Chromatic Orrery or whatever, that the times that it's actually good and decent for what you're trying to do is a very small margin. And again, for the point of saying, well, how much of the time was it not relevant? Did it even do anything? And you only needed maybe 1 or 2 of the mana that it actually produced, or 1 or 2 of the effects in your deck actually took advantage of that card. You would have been better off playing, cheaper mana rocks. You would have gotten more advantage out of them, or you should have played cards that actually got you lands and actually got you mana. You would have got more out of those cards, and been able to do more with your mana, with more other mana on your turn, rather than having to play this 5, 6, 7 mana card that basically you only used 2 or 3 mana out of. It wasn't worth it. So, or you often only use it for 1 or 2 mana, Sure, if you can untap with Wilderness Reclamation and things like this is pretty good. But again, it's not that good unless you actually have a lot of interaction. And again, I don't think you need to run a lot of interaction. You certainly need to run some. And again, I think people get a little bit too scared of something sometimes and will immediately kill something. Excuse me. But they'll immediately go to kill something rather than allowing that thing to actually do anything worthwhile. You should allow people to try to kill the other players. If they come for you, then perhaps you say, "Oh well, now I'll kill it," because now you're trying to kill me, or it will kill me. Blah blah blah. So just save your removal. I think a lot of the time until something's actually going to straight up win, or is way too good for somebody to have. It's too much of a value engine or whatever. Or just save your things for when they're specifically going to target you and kill you with it. Because otherwise, or unless it actually proceeds to kill you because of the fact that it kills the other two players and you just can't deal with it, then you might have to do something then and say, hey, look, guys, we need an alliance or we need to do something about this or whatnot. But those things, again, you can play into those things and whatnot. Or you need to, remember, hey, oh, Steve over there or whatever is playing Zedru. Oh, look, he just cast Aggressive Mining. You know what? I'm going to source to Plowshare Zedru because I don't want him to give me Aggressive Mining next turn or whatever. That sucks for Steve over there or whatever, because now he won't be able to play the game, and that sucks because, again, I don't like playing against those sorts of decks that are, saying that you can't play the game, but when you, basically do that effect to somebody else as well, it's a feel bads, man, but it's their fault for playing that sort of style of deck, I think, to a degree as well. So I just think you should play, not so much quote unquote better decks, but you should play better decks. You should play decks that are basically trying to win of their own volition, which is what I mean. You shouldn't be playing decks that are saying people can't do this or you won't do this. I want, the game to be a stall and I want to just control the board and I just want you to not be able to play Magic and I want you to watch me play Solitaire. Those are the decks that I don't want to play with. And those are the decks that I hate. So, just be a bit mindful of other people's playing the game and be mindful of what people are actually saying when they're saying that's a bad card. They're not saying they hate the card. They're just saying it's not good. It just doesn't do enough of the time to be relevant in the deck that you're playing. So just keep these things in mind, guys. Be a little bit kinder to each other. Play for fun. Play what you like. And certainly if you want to steal people's things for an advantage and whatnot, or if you happen to have those things, if it's happened to be part of what your deck's naturally doing, again, like, you should never run board wipes, but you should be smart about playing them. And you need to know when you can play things and when you can't play things, and you need to be able to assess what's happening. And you need to understand when you can take advantage of it. If you can take advantage of it, then it's really good. If you have things that give your board indestructible, then you're just going to get out to that high lead. Or if you have things that basically only wrath or only tap down the other player's boards and whatnot, it's like Cyclonic Rift. That's why that card is played so much, because it's so good, because it is an inverse effect. It helps you get so far ahead and it puts everyone else so far behind. So that's just the sort of things that I think people need to realize. I know that some people don't like Cyclonic Rift and I don't love it, which is why I don't really play it much. I did have it in one of my decks for a short period of time, but again, I just found that it is way too, well, really way too strong, and I just find that it is a card that is problematic. So, and a lot of people don't like it. But anyway, that's the way that card, and that's why I took it out, because I was considerate of other people's enjoyment in playing the game. I don't want to play cards that make other people feel bad or make other people not want to play me. I want these people to come back and go, oh, Adam, you've got some cool decks. They're really strong, but I can still beat them, and you can still beat my decks sometimes or whatever. But I don't want people to go away with that, either that salty feeling or that sour grapes or that sour lemon feeling, like, oh, Adam was such a jerk or whatever. I never want to play him again because he was playing a stupid stack deck or he was playing a stupid turn 2-3 combo deck. I just don't want those things. Nor do I want people to feel like the cards that they have are playing are dead. Like, if you're playing Temple of the False God turn 1 or turn 2 or whatever, and then you have no other lands, you're just sitting there going, oh cool, great. Like, I feel bad when people are like that. That's why I try to help people and try to make these videos where I'm trying to assess cards and say, hey, just rethink this card in your decks. It's not that good. It is actively bad most of the time. And when it's doing what it's doing, is it actually actively that good for you? So that's all I'm saying, guys. Just think about it, and don't think that I'm actually trying to say that I hate, like Temple of the False God or cards like that. When I say these things, I'm just trying to say rethink them. But anyway, guys, I hope that might clear some things up or might give you some informative stuff and whatnot about playing some games of Commander. And just, again, it all comes down to your playgroup. I know there are people out there that love playing CEDH, or more competitive Magic at least, than what I like playing. And that's fine. You go and you play what you want to play. It's not up to me to tell you what you can play. It's just me saying, hey, I would prefer not to play against a turn 2, turn 3 combo deck. And if there's a lot of people that want to play that style where they're just not interested in playing these turn 2, turn 3 combo decks or whatnot, and there's a lot of people, again, that are interested in playing those turn 2, turn 3 combo decks, and the idea is to always have interaction and removal and whatnot in your deck. And in those decks, it's completely different style of play. And I don't I don't subscribe to it, but I understand that it exists, and I, say again, everyone should be allowed to play the decks and the games that they want to play. And I do think that every sort of meta, quote unquote, should be represented in Magic. So if you want to play that, that's up to you. Again, go talk to the people that you're playing, or play with the people that are playing the decks that you want to be playing with. Don't come to a table and say, hey, here's my turn 2 combo deck and win the game, or here's my stacks deck, and just like lock everyone out without, having that everyone else be on the same page sort of thing. But anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed this video, as I say, and do help us out if you can. Like, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon, and hope that you'll come again in another video.